be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. It hasn't just been 4 years. It's been 4 times 10. 40 years. God brought the people of Israel out of their bondage in Egypt and through the waters of the Red Sea, and for 40 years they've been with God in the wilderness, being pushed and pulled, shaped and formed, so that finally they are the people of God, a community, a nation, ready to enter into the land that they have been promised. And so here on the banks of the River Jordan, they set up camp, and Joshua addresses them. Joshua recognizes that there is danger in this moment, because finally leaving the wilderness, finally coming home, the people of Israel might forget how they got here. They might forget who brought them here. They might forget the lessons so hard learned that have formed them and brought them to the place where they can finally come home. And so Joshua asks them to choose. Will you continue on the path on which God has set you? Or will you return to your old ways, abandoning God, the one who has brought you to this moment? This has been a difficult week for all of us, but difficult in its own special way for preachers. There were 3 Old Testament lessons to choose from this week. One from the Wisdom of Solomon, one from Amos, and the one we heard today from the book of Joshua. And because of the way that we prepare for Sunday mornings here at St. Andrew's, we have to pick that reading early in the week. So all week long, I've been getting up every morning and looking at the news. Will the sermon that I've been preparing still be relevant on Sunday morning? Will something have changed overnight? Will something have happened that will cause me to need to rewrite those thoughts at the last minute? I did that very thing this morning, still concerned, still not knowing, still needing to make sure that we are standing here on the banks of the River Jordan together. But I have to confess to you that when push came to shove and I had to choose that Old Testament reading on Wednesday, it wasn't the news. It wasn't our current context. It wasn't the gospel reading or the New Testament reading assigned for today that had me land on this reading from Joshua. I have to confess to you that it was a cartoon. A beautifully drawn watercolor of a mother and her daughter. And the mother is tenderly holding one hand of her daughter with her other hand on her daughter's neck. And the little girl says, "But what if they lose?" And the mother responds, "Then we'll keep fighting for the rights of all people." And then the little girl asks, "But what if they win?" And the mother says, "Dear girl, it's the same answer. It's the same answer." Wandering in the wilderness, home, winners, losers, it's the same answer. We, as the people of God, are called to fight for the rights of all people, to care for the widow and the orphan, to feed the hungry, to house the homeless, to clothe the naked, to visit the sick and those who are in prison. We are called to live the same life, no matter where we are, and no matter what our context. This cartoon, I think, was particularly relevant this week because there was a question of authority, a question of leadership hanging in the balance. And for most of us in these last few weeks, that question has been reduced to winners and losers, to winning and losing. I think we need to be careful to remember that the only losers in this equation are the naked, the hungry, the homeless, those who are sick or in prison, the widow and the orphan. Authority, power is given to people in our midst. We grant that power and authority so that they might help us in the work that we are called to do, to care for one another, to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and our neighbor as ourselves. And we are called to walk the same path, having learned our lessons and been formed and shaped as God's people, no matter who sits in that chair, that seat of authority and power. So I imagine that some of us yesterday at noon were rejoicing, some of us were grieving. But my prayer is that all of us in that moment felt no change in our call, in our vocation. Because no matter the outcome of the election that we have just come through, we are called to the same work. And if we feel that we have won in this moment, if we feel that we are about to finally come home, then Joshua is speaking to us today. Because there is a real danger that we will forget who we are and whose we are. Forget who and what has brought us to this moment, and who and what calls us to a life that leads to the peace that passes all understanding. What if they lose? Then we continue to fight for the rights of all people. What if they